It's not bias. I definition is not in our work. No. I didn't say it. No, there was Hey, you want me to prove it wrong?
All right. So you got the rulers on your desk. Most of you have one ruler. Some of you had two because I had extras. So if you have two rulers, you're going to be working more in like a partnership. If you have only one ruler, you're going to be working more with like a group of four. So this is in connection to the relationship between the architecture of Greece and the human sculptures or the portraiture of Greece that we are seeing in the classical period. They have discovered, and I should say in particular, people like Pythagoras, who are mathematicians, who are discovering the idea of proportion is an interval and relationship and connections between certain numbers, essentially the form of equation. And this influences things like music. The harps and guitars and all that kind of stuff is based on, and then now later on the piano and all these other things are based on these intervals of forms, these octaves and other elements. Along with that then also is the aspects of nature, and in particular the human form, have these intervals that create harmony and beauty. And we can see it all throughout these objects. This in particular is, this work is, I believe, a reconstruction of the Parthenon. And you can see all the different intersections, intervals of not only the square or the golden rectangle, but also the elements of the spiral that goes underneath it. So interactions of circles as well. And the idea of sphere and circle all working as intersections of that original proportion that we mentioned yesterday. I think it was, what was the equation that I showed you guys yesterday?
Y plus 1. No, wait, x equals 2x.
2y plus 1, right? So it's something along the lines of 2 of something plus 1. And as such, this creates sort of a golden ratio. So here's what I want you to do. Take about 5 minutes. It's a silly activity, but it'll get you up out of your seat a little bit. Obviously, I want you to see how close you guys are to the golden ratio for your own body. There is a golden mean that exists or should exist or supposedly theorized to exist between your legs to your torso and your torso to your head, top of your head. So have your partner stand up. If you're a team of 4, have one person stand up, have another person measure them, other person record it, and another person create the proportion. So develop the golden mean. Stand up, take measurements of both your legs to your torso to your head, and then divide it to see how close it gets to the golden mean. I'll be putting up the golden mean in a second to show you guys how close you exist to the Greek ideal.
Okay, first.
5 minutes, go quick.
So it's from leg to torso?
Yeah, so the leg to torso.
Centimeters or inches?
It doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. You need to have standard units of measurement, whatever they are.
38. From where?
Wait, what are the measurements again?
The golden, do the leg to the torso to head, and I'm going to show you the mean at the top here.
7 plus 30? 30 plus 30 plus 5. No, she's more. Yeah, she's 12. 30 plus 12 is 42. Yeah. So, we got the first one. 42. We got a calculator here.
Golden ratio is 1.6.
Yeah, we did the other way. How is this? We should ask her for her height, then we should measure her body torso. Okay, so you want ratio.
You are out the golden ratio.
Now it's just me.
Oh god, it's gonna be even more hot. I don't think any of us are golden.
You're looking to find who maybe is closest to 1.6. Take about 2 more minutes. Go quick.
Hey, we're still we just got to our second person.
Well, hurry up. You don't have to measure everybody. Just try and measure as many as you can.
Branches, right?
Almost there, Mr. Moore. Almost there.
Good.
Got 1 point.
What are you?
Okay, so kind of close to the 1.6. Is that you? Close to that. What?
Okay,
2 times 12? Yeah.
Yeah, then
I'm
we
not an
add
math test.
12
times 3 is 36. Alright, as soon as you finish up your last measurement here, whoever you're measuring, have a seat. Make sure you get the ratio there. Are you beautiful? Perfect golden ratio?
I'm you guys should measure my
Ratio.
You're way off the golden ratio. No, you didn't measure me.
1.4? Okay.
No, they gotta You're just standing up. No, we did it right. No, we did it right. No, we didn't.
Okay, so 42 is
3.5. You just made yourself more off the golden ratio.
Alright.
I say
Have a seat and go ahead. Go quick. So, go to write down the ratio in your notes here of one of your neighbors. It can just be one person. See how close they are to that 1.6. It's like 1.613. It's an infinite or rational number. It just continues. 1.64. So right around where it should be 1.6. Now, when I say where it should be, or when I say the golden ratio is like the standard of beauty, I am inherently creating a sort of a cultural bias or fallacy of saying that the math of your ratios is what defines beauty. Obviously, this is subjective, and when we did our feminine ideals, I hope it came out clear that, at least from an academic standpoint, the idea of what's beautiful is highly subjective. Each culture has a different definition of that. It just so happens that the ancient Greeks are discovering mathematical patterns underlying human nature and form. If we were a math class, we would be going more in detail about all the ratios. But just to know that that ancient Greek sculptors, and in particular a man who was a contemporary of the construction of the Parthenon by the name of Polycletus, develops and discovers and applies Pythagorean theories regarding the human body to his sculptors, or I should say, discovering these human patterns or these mathematical patterns, and then he applies them to the human body. So if we were to be a math class, we would spend more time looking at each of the ratios within your body, because even if we're all kind of not quite the 1.6 ratio, that's sort of the objective standard, the golden rule, we would all have a certain element of proportionality and ratio within our own bodies that we could discover and find. So even though everyone might be a little bit different, we would all have some type of interesting relationship between our sort of the parts of our body and the body as a whole. So from the tip of the finger to the first knuckle, tip to the second knuckle, within each other has a certain patterning here that you could even see if I were to create like a sort of a spiral through, it would go through there, and then you get this sort of interesting what we call the Fibonacci spiral or the Fibonacci sequence, which is discovered later. This patterning that exists throughout all of nature. You can see it in all these works. There's a golden rectangle within Vitruvian Man. You see the golden rectangle working even in profile. I want to show you the best way I've seen this represented is actually a Disney character. Donald Duck goes to Mathmagic Land and begins to discover what it means to have a golden ratio or a golden mean. So I want you to take a look at this, and I do want you to take notes on it, so don't just think this is sort of fun. It's probably the most informative way I have seen visualizing the golden mean. So go ahead and have your notes ready to go, because he's going to introduce how the golden mean exists within places and like the Acropolis. Inside the Acropolis, like the Erechtheion, he's going to show you that. He's going to show you the Parthenon. And even if you saw this before, you might not have realized just how much significance it has to art history.
Oh, it's very fitting because of homecoming week.
Sorry, hold on. This needs to pause, and then this needs to go.
No, guys, you can die.
Don't worry about this.
When did it...
Shh. Turn off the lights, please. Thank you. Sorry about the... I'm going to get it up higher here. Shh. So, intervals.
Once again, we have the golden section.
That's within a star.
Within the pentagram is a secret for creating a golden rectangle, which the Greeks admired for its beautiful proportions and magic qualities. The star contains the golden rectangle many times over.
The fact that the pentagram also happens to have a pentagon in the center, it becomes a pattern for the interval is infinite. So here's what the golden sections create when we start looking at emphasis. Now we're seeing art. You can see this has sort of a spiraling effect, doesn't it?
This figure also contains a magic spiral that repeats the proportions of the golden section into infinity. To the Greeks, the golden rectangle
Vanishing points. Same thing.
We find it in their classical architecture.
Now we're on the Acropolis.
The Parthenon, perhaps one of the most famous of early Greek buildings, contains many rectangles.
This is the Erechtheion. This is the Porch of the Maidens we're going to be studying.
These same golden proportions are also found in their sculpture.
Knees, torso, head, even into the face.
In the centuries that followed, the golden rectangle dominated the idea of beauty and architecture throughout the Western world. The Cathedral of Notre Dame is an outstanding example. The Renaissance painters knew this secret well. Today, the golden rectangle is very much a part of our rediscovered the magic of this proportion. Indeed, this ideal proportion is to be found in life itself. No. Ideal proportion. Not quite. Well, we can't all be mathematically perfect. Knowledge all has other methods. But human nature uses the same mathematical form for plutonium. The star jasper. The starfish. The black swan. There are literally thousands of members in good standing. Nature's Pythagorean Society of the Stars. All nature's works have a mathematical logic, and their patterns are limited.
It almost seems like camera trickery, like they're changing the size of the things to think about the proportion. Pretty amazing. You should.
Everything is arranged according to number and mathematical shape. Yes, there is mathematics in music, in art, in just about everything. And as the Greeks had guessed, the rules are always the same.
Anyway, that's someone's PowerPoint there about the different parts. A star. That's funny.
Really?
That's clever. Come on, it's the star, man. True. So imagine the excitement of discovering, kind of for the first time in human history, probably not even realizing that you were the progenitor of it, but being able to discover that there is a mathematical underpinning to all of nature, that nature is in fact ordered by numbers, and then it's not just that, oh, that thing looks similar to that thing, but literally there's a pattern by which the two are connected, and the two are ultimately one in some ways. And so this is why architecture can be so similar, or at least be an expression of the human form and vice versa. So the two are connected here. Here's a good comparison between Paestum, which is the one that I've been to down in the south of Italy, and the Parthenon. Notice that even though their proportions are, their dimensions are different, their proportions are relatively the same. They maintain the same golden ratio, the need for the golden ratio. So each one of these would have been in relation to each other, even though they are different buildings with different dimensions. Notice, by the way, that the Paestum one is a little bit longer, and it is a little bit lower. So this one represents, and it expresses more of the Doric, the squatness of a Doric order. Whereas this one, it seems to be pushing, this one's earlier and older, by the way. In the 5th century with the Acropolis, the work is starting to begin to have that verticality. And I mentioned that last time we discussed it. Also, the stylobate is several repetitions above the ground. And even still, there are imprecisions in the way in which they produce the ultimate product so that it still looks beautiful to us who don't always see things perfectly. We don't see things perfectly mathematical, so they changed just enough of it to where it seems like it's interesting to us. They elevated the center of the stylobate just enough so it didn't look like it's sagging in the middle. And the same with the columns, I mentioned that yesterday. Some of the column widths are different as a result of knowing that light on the outside will make it look like it's not actually the same. It will look like it's skinnier, so they thicken them on this outside. So things like that still remind us that the man is the measure of all things, and that the ancient Greeks believed that very, very fully. All right, so these are the Paestum and the Parthenon. The Porch of the Maidens, and there's a reproductions of the Porch of the Maidens in the Louvre. So there's me in front of them. And you get a lot of these master studies throughout history, particularly the French would do this when they would go out and be a presence during the 18th century. They would go out and like make casts of things in order to have in their own museums, because then you get more, you show yourself to be the greater art center. So France did this, Britain did this. They created cast molds of things all throughout the world, and here's one of them. The Erechtheum in Acropolis, so this is right next door to the Parthenon in 421. This is built by a architect by the name of Menescles. It has a very irregular shape, probably because of the several iterations of its building. Different people sort of working on it or for different purposes, and so one side looks like a porch with these caryatids, which are like female columns, very different than the Doric, Ionic, Corinthian orders. To have these sort of caryatid objects, which are essentially humans that are created as replacements to columns. Some of the buildings just have flat objects or engaged columns on other sides of it. The roof is held up by these 6 female, again, caryatids. I know that term, on a high parapet, which is a large foot base for her, instead of columns. For Vitruvius, who is a Roman historian and mathematician in his own right, this represented sort of the feminine quality that connected to the masculinity of the Parthenon. So the Parthenon with the Doric order represented more of a masculine. Even though Athenas of Parthenos was a woman, the exterior of the building, at least according to Vitruvius, I assume it's because of the colonnade, the peristyle around the outside of the cella, probably had phallic qualities to it, masculine qualities. Colonnades or columns tend to be masculine anyway, just because of the nature of their shape. The word phallic just means it's like penis-like. That's sad or not. Masculine, so it has like that quality to it. Eiffel Tower, any type of skyscraper, those are all phallic or masculine symbols. And they don't think like that, but art historians do, don't worry. Everything has to come down to sex, right? That's what they're all producing. So this is more of a feminine quality because the caryatids are female.
You're not recording this, right?
Yes, I am. But it's a factual statement. I'm not being inappropriate. Yes?
Okay, so two questions. First of all, when this kill that guy, was
Yeah.
that a person?
Yes. And you can use him for your artist portrait, but there'll be other important ones, and I would say more important than him. I don't even know anything about him, other than that he produced the Erechtheum. Right.
And also that they use like those buildings. Like I know they're there, but what did they do with them? Like if
These are temples to deity, and then also it was sort of the hubris or the pride of Athens to have the Acropolis built and then rebuilt after the Persian War, because they got all the people around them, like Sparta and Troy and all these people that were helping them, to give Athens all their money to use towards the war. And then when they defeated Persia, and Persia pulled back a little bit and went back to their own things, it was a big empire, but they said, no, we're not going to take over Greece for this time. Athens, instead of giving all that war treasure back, put it towards building up this beautiful Acropolis for Athens. Of course, this creates bad blood between people in the Peloponnesus island, so Sparta versus Athens becomes an issue because you don't want to piss off Leonidas. You don't want to take on Spartans. Their whole life is built on military. It just so happens Athens was sort of the first amongst equals. They became sort of a leader. Pericles, the guy that we saw the picture with his officer, his helmet, his general helmet. He was the one that made this really smart move as a teenager. Probably shouldn't have given teenagers too much money, or they're just going to spend it wrong. And as such, they get kind of in debt, and then eventually it gets destroyed by Sparta. So we have also a monument of, let's see, do I have a picture of it? There it is. Monument of Lysicrates introduces the Corinthian column. So just to sort of finish up the colonnades before looking at human sculpture, we have what's called a tolos, which is, I've said this before, it's sort of a rounded object or a rounded structure. So toluses usually have engaged columns around them. This is in 334 BCE at Delphi. And this is the author of the Corinthian style. Corinthian columns use acanthus leaves. So there's a certain type of leaf that becomes very decorative and interesting. Here's again the look of it. It also uses sort of an inverted rectangular structure with cuts of sort of negative space of like a semicircle. So the arch becomes sort of a prominent feature here. So these arched pointed objects, pointed rectangular object.
Is it called tolos?
Tolos is the rounded part of this whole structure here, and the column order is created in this monument. Why it's so important is because it's the first time we see Corinthian style colonnade.
So what do we name it? Tolos?
It's the Monument of Lysicrates is the name of the work. The tolos is the rounded object, and the I suppose you would say that this author here, Theodoros of Phocaea, was the Corinthian style author. Round base, engaged columns, and an elaborate support system for the tripod. Some sort of choral contest. Don't need to know that. That produced this monument. But it's the fact that this is this is the first time we see these types of flowery arrangements with smaller volutes on either side of it. What?
Is it stone?
It is stone. Yeah, it's a form of marble which is a stone. I'm not sure exactly what the medium is. You can look that up as you need to. To say something super quick about how music introduces it, and then we'll go into the most important thing, which is human sculpture. Acoustics is a big deal for Greeks because next year you will be reading some Greek tragedies, and you'll learn a little bit about how the Greeks developed their form of expression. So they actually have these. They developed these theaters, and the word theater is a Greek word, and every aspect of the architecture that we know today as a theater comes directly from the Greek culture, the classical Greek buildings. So just as the temple and Parthenon, so also the theater. So we have the same kind of literally Western civilization being founded on the innovations of Greece. The open-air theater is a semicircular, sort of bulb-like dome, half-dome structure, or inverted dome, I should say, as it elevates up your audience. So the audience inverts upward and at such an angle so as each sheet is created a perfect interval with the one next to it, a ratio, that allows for the sound to perfectly carry from the center of the proscenium, which is the end of the stage, to the audience. They even had an orchestra pit that would also be extra projection for music and for other types of concert venue options. They would produce masks that had large eyes and very expressive features so that they could create and act in a way that people in the back could see them without TVs or with any type of projection. And those masks would also include some type of echo chamber around it so that when you were to directionalize your voice, you can hear it and it becomes a form of acoustic amplification. So kind of a cool thing for them to discover and to literally be able to, if you were to shout and talk and even whisper on the stage here, you could hear it pretty well if people were quiet all the way to the back of the theater. Now, in the Roman period, just as a kind of fun fact, the Roman period, what does this look like from Rome? Colosseum. Except the Romans are sort of like, I call them the Donald Trump of the ancient world. Because they kind of want things to look classy. So they're like, we've got to make my building look like a Greek casino, you know? Like that's all they did, right? Is they wanted it for their casino. So you get like Caesar's Palace or whatever. It's like Vegas stuff. Romans were like Donald Trump or like the Las Vegas of the ancient world. They took the beauty and the acoustics of the theater, which was meant for like, you know, nuanced expression, and said, well, we need more seating, so just let's put them both together and make what's called a coliseum, which means two of these theaters together. Now, it destroys the acoustics to do that. People in the back can't hear it in the same way that the people in the front, they don't really care so much about the acoustics. They care now about making sure people get in and out quickly. And then they don't care about the nuance of poetry. They care about watching three, starved slaves fight a big bear and two lions that are chained up. And it's like this crazy, awesome event because they didn't have football yet, so they got to do something. And it's mostly about animal cruelty and death penalties. Lots and lots of death penalties. So, yeah. In fact, the idea of arena comes from the sand that was used to soak up the blood inside the center. So the fact that, like get inside the arena, it actually is a Latin word that represents the type of death that occurred. So this is a fun fact of how this continues on, this regular shape. This auditorium amphitheater type element becomes a Colosseum in the Roman period. Here is a cross-section of what the orchestra, the proscenium, all this kind of stuff that would be in the theater. If you're interested in theater and you take a class on it, this is some of the stuff that you would learn as well. So there's a bit of crossover here. All right, now let's look at some of the ways in which human sculpture also represents the golden mean and ideal. The Critios revolution, you have the Critios boy, which produces for the first time a form of rhythmos. And you've already been seeing it because of the thematic units, but let's identify what it is and when it was discovered. The Critios boy, which begins in the classical period right around the same time as the Parthenon, a little bit earlier than the Parthenon, we developed this symmetry that we now know from against the archaic Choros. So the archaic period, you had these characters very stiff, compact, low negative space, so that it sort of showed the formality and frontality of your characters and their forms. Now we're starting to think about beauty and the mathematics of asymmetry, but sort of rhythmic asymmetry, so the body being more natural. So every one of you, when you were standing up here, you naturally put weight on how many feet? Usually on 1 foot. Some of you, if you were trying to show like you were really scared, you were really upset, I noticed some of you had your legs out more like this, and you had more of that front balance to show that you are kind of pulling yourself down to the ground. But most of you wanted to have more of like this shifting of weight to one side. And this is a natural pose. And the pose then creates sort of this S shape within your spine. And if you were to create a gesturing with that, you'd want to emphasize that sort of movement of your body. The natural sort of balance that you create when your body sort of balances over on the other side from when you are shifting your weight. So there's like this S that is created in your body to create balance. And the balance is still beautiful, and it doesn't need to be super height and formal because it almost looks too unnatural when people are standing like this. When you want them to stand more at ease, you create this system. And it's one of the most important terms of art history, contrapposto. Contrapposto means that you have a shifting of weight or balance. Contraposture. It's like a reverse S curve. It's asymmetry, but it's calculated based on the nature of how we move and how we feel when we're sitting at ease. So if I'm trying to create someone moving, there's this natural kind of balance that goes on that's not the stiff frontality or the stiff symmetry. And so the contrapposto is shown in this work called the Critios boy in 480 BCE, made out of marble, 46 inches, and it's from the Acropolis. Yes.
So on these these sculptures, did they have were they doing was it somebody and they were sculpting that, or were they just doing it?
Yeah, so they would actually have to observe humans when they're doing this work. Absolutely. And probably everyone's been doing that, like observing people. That's not an issue. The issue is how we observe them and what we think is ideal. So for the Greeks, they discover this mathematics, they discover that, and they suggest rhythm is important, and so contraposto becomes a necessary element. What they have innovated, though, is the understanding how the body works regarding gravity. So how my body is pushing up against gravity based on the tension, the friction of not just my outer body, but also everything working on the inside. So if I were to like slump down, how would my body look? How would my bones look? How would my clothing look? These are the things, the observational skills that the Greeks really perfect over and against people in the Egyptian period. So there's my wonderful brother-in-law making fun of that girl who was in that other work, taking a picture. Anyway, here I am doing the... All right, moving on.
What's your brother's last name?
Simon.
Yes, I saw him at the
At the
Career Expo.
Career
Yes,
Expo. He's an awesome. I mean, his work. I've shown you his work before. He's amazing, and he currently teaches this awesome class of illustration and design at Elsinore. So he's got a cool lab and all that stuff. Sort of the best thing we have in the district. Greek artist outline. So you need to write these guys down. These are the big dogs of Greece. These are the most important artists. And I would say, and I would argue, and most people would do so, that Polycletus is the most important of these four. He's in 450. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you're right. 5. Haha. Good job, Justin. No. Not for counting. Myron is sort of the earlier one, kind of helping us think about the natural or the anatomy. Polycletus develops mathematics along with the anatomy and suggests the first canon. The canon of form or the canon of beauty being built within the human form. This is Polycletus's discovery. Phidias, Praxiteles, and the Sippos. Phidias will be drapery. He'll be really good at sort of, okay, now let's look at how we clothe these objects. So they don't always have to be naked. Praxiteles creates a softness to the characters. So then how can I show deity as more of like this eros or this loving type sensual object? How I can create sort of a subtle Dionysian spirit within it, so a subtle sense of emotion. So the characters aren't these like perfectly stoic like objects, that they also give a sense of softness. So there's basically just adding characteristics, adding attributes to the essence of mathematical perfection. Finally, the Sippos creates, he redoes the canon, he changes his proportions a little bit, as well as what rhythms and what emphasis to create. And so as a result, a lot of his sculpture is going to look very like, okay, kind of like this frenetic energy. The characters sort of are nervous. So he has like boxers. So he has like people like tired. So like Hercules, after he's like beat up the Nemean lion, he's gonna be like, like that, or like a boxer, like kind of ready to go, right? So these are the nervous energies of different types of gestures, and you get a different sense of the attributes of what it means to be human. Discobolos is the first work here by Myron. The Discobolos figure is that full sense of the rhythm of an athlete. Originally 450, but most of what we see, by the way, is Roman copies. So just as a quick side note, everything we're seeing is probably not what it looked like in its perfect glory of Polycletus' hand himself, or of Myron's hand, or Phidias' hand. Most of it is copies from Rome. So take it for what it's worth. They were pretty good, that they weren't the best. When we see bronze originals, most Greeks did bronze casting. And then the Romans produced these marble things that we see today. More than likely they're not as good, but they're pretty close. So here is Myron and his Discobolos. He's condensing an action to a single pose, and it's not really frozen. It's not like a diorite, coffret painting, a sculpture, but instead it's sort of this complexity of movement, and we got lots of negative space here for the first time. We have a violent twist of the torso, is bringing the arm right up to the same place of emphasis as the leg, the back leg, and so we get a good sense of balance to our character. Our character is not held down by anything. He is standing on his own stylobate by himself in perfect balance within the sculptural weight as well. meaning it's not like this hand or whatever is too heavy for the rest of the object, and he's perfectly balanced as a statue. So he's not going to fall down. It's pretty amazing too. Focus and composition on balance. And one of the ways, because when you guys were to, if you were to stand on one foot right now, you'd be constantly having to adjust your weight because our body's compensating for stuff. But to actually be, imagine having to produce a sculpture that can't do that, but has to be perfectly balanced. This is why mathematics and precision and measuring become super important, because they have to literally make the thing balance perfectly without any adjustments of a brain activity or nervous system. So that's just heightens the beauty or the appreciation of it. Here's it from another perspective. You can see how these two are in alignment, and how the body with its sort of dramatic contrapposto is showing a movement in time. And of course you see the anatomy underneath, which is what Myron and these others will be so known for. Understanding how the body moves, how the body interacts both inside and out. Thank you. Change place. Same place as the legs. That is it's a special Greek word. Playa. You have a black figure, basically the same figure here going on. We'll look at the end of Greek pottery later. And there is a Discavos copy in the British Museum, and I'm perfectly showing you, as you see, and with my camera in my hand instead of a discus. The severe style of classic Greece comes with Polycletus. Here is the spear bearer. His name is Doryphoros in the Greek, spear bearer in the English. This is almost a pure example of, this should say geometry, so I already called it out. Sorry. No. I know. I was probably in the middle of the night when I produced this for the first time. I have never changed it. Geometry, it's supposed to be an expression of what geometry is. It has no other function. So when you think like, oh, what does this represent, or what does this mean culturally? Well, it means that this is a canon for what math is in the human body. That's what he was trying to show. So it's not that he cares about athletes or spears or anything like that. It's that this character represents mathematical form. He is a canon. He's the same thing as a treatise of how the body interacts, the hand interacts with the forearm, etc., and the same with what you guys measure, the head to the belly button, or the torso to the legs. He has a perfect 1.6. He's got that whole thing going on. So instead of saying he's a perfect 10, you got to say he's a perfect 1.6. Got to get that golden mean going on. It's a perfect 1.6, man. It's a total golden mean. Naturalistic rhythm still. So even with the focus on mathematics, it's still got that asymmetry, that rhythm, which is heightening the beauty. These are idyllic, which is another way of saying it's ideal. Idyllic proportions. So know that term. Idyllic proportions. Our character has a sense of rest. This is like the pent up sort of beauty and perfection of the human form right before maybe throwing the javelin. So he's kind of like maybe looking at it in a sense of movement. Notice that the contrapposto here is pushing even further as his leg is pushing off, and he's kind of in that moment of walk. Maybe he's getting ready to kind of go back and forth, balancing, kind of feeling the balance, and then throwing the javelin would be next. So this is the moment of rest right before the moment of energy, which is like the perfect moment, right? So that's what Polycletus is trying to achieve. Proportion, structure, sense of rhythmos, composition, movement, any and all of these principles of design would be important to talk about. And this work has quite a bit to talk about, so it should be one of your anchor works that you know quite a bit about. The severe style also has a strange thing. Remember, men are naked, women are clothed for whatever reason, most likely the cultural dominance of male over female and the cultural beauty of men over women. And so in this work here we see a character produced with full toga drapery. And so the severe style also starts developing drapery as well. Riachi warriors are bronze originals. They were found in a shipwreck, so it's kind of a cool story. They're shipwrecked. We found them at the bottom of the ocean, pulled them back out. And it gives us a better sense of how perfect Greek sculptures were compared to the Roman copying counterparts. The Riachi warriors are original, so they are bronze originals, and they also show that sense of perfect stability within the work, even more so and greater than most Roman copies. The Riachi warriors represent all of that sort of, you see that clear contrapposto going on from this classical period. But these characters are warriors, and we know that because they have huge beards, they're hairy, as opposed to the athletes, which are not. They are clean cut. They had elements that created realism, including glass-cased eyes, just like we've seen with so many other sculptures. I think I have a zoom in. No, these are the two here. But notice this form here. Again, this is freestanding. So just the idea of being able to stand freely like this with that contrapposto, with that sense, that lack of perfect symmetry, and yet still a perfect balance all the way down with the proper foot holding the weight of the sculpture. It's mirroring how people actually stand. And so these are also perfect examples of the Polycletan canon.
Where are these at the Louvre?
These are still in Athens, actually. These are still in Greece, outside the Acropolis. Good question. There's most works are outside, mostly in Britain and France, but there's still plenty of important works to see in Greece itself. Greece, unfortunately, is not a very stable place, and it hasn't been for centuries. So it's okay. It's just not like the best place to keep stuff. So typically, their stuff has been removed, either stolen or otherwise. Yeah, this is him, like kind of the dramatic deity beat down. We'll see Jesus doing this too in Michelangelo's works, like that kind of either a high five or I'm gonna beat you up, because that's what I'm gonna spank. I'm gonna whack you in the face. I'm gonna smack you. Not spank you. Like, get out of here! Come on, good game. All right. Movement in statues. Here we see again that freestanding balance, even with the hands out. Pretty marvelous. This is Zeus. And I probably have some sort of cool thunderbolt. Can you imagine like a neon lightsaber or something? Be able to throw that. Almost 7 feet tall, so this shows heroic proportions. This is kind of a cool work for that reason. The Zeus from 460 BCE. This doesn't have true motion. This is an important distinction between human depictions and deity depictions. See, deities don't need to exert any energy. So when they're moving, they're not really moving. So that's why when we see Jesus, he'll be like this, kind of just like, I don't really need to move. This guy the same way. He's just kind of like showing off like, I'm a freaking god right now. Like, I don't even have to be doing this. I can just be like, and I can just like shoot it from my chest or something. So these characters are always kind of like at rest, not really doing the discoverable stuff. So humans exert energy. Deities are just there. So he's more showing off that he has got this supreme power within himself. You see the same with Apollos when he's beating up these centaurs. The centaurs will be like contorted all around him, like, oh, friggin', you're beating me up. And and Apollos will just be like this. It's like, just come here, and like the guy's like flailing, but Apollos is like friggin' BA just by himself, just not having to work on anything. Not so much about his adversary, of course, but the symbolic act of throwing the bolt shows his strength, shows his superiority, etc., etc. Here is a up close of his face, so you can see the stylized beard. Very similar to the characters of. Well, what does this look like?
The first statue, the lady,
No. I'm thinking of the Akkadian ruler. You guys see Akkadian ruler on this? No. Okay, I think so. I'm right and you're wrong.
The lady with the eyebrow.
No, not that. Oh, that one. I guess you can see like in and out, whatever. It's the same thing. Akkadian ruler. If you were to look at that work, look it up. The Akkadian ruler's head, the head of Akkadian ruler, totally the same, right? Because the eyes and everything, and the stylized beard. Look it up. You know.
No.
Okay. I'm gonna skip that one. I don't care. I don't care about this pop quiz.
Skip that out of
No pop quiz.
Here's what I'm talking about with the Battle of Lapith and the centaurs. This is Apollo just like gonna like knock down somebody. And here they are raping the ladies.
This just makes me sad. This is such an amazing artwork. It's ruined.
It's pretty much ruined. You're right. Like these are all like, I think it's this tall, based on proportions. But it's kind of cool that we can reconstruct what we have. But this probably was all laying down on the ground. They're grabbing them and leaving with them because centaurs are sucky people. But this is to show people. This was outside of Olympia. So notice it's in. This should say Olympia, not Olympia. Maybe there's different ways to spell it. I don't know. But it's to remind athletes and remind spectators of the Olympic Games that Apollos has his sort of a rule of approval on this, and that you aren't to screw around. Don't hurt people. Don't mess people up. You are to be Apollonian. meaning in control of your emotions. Unlike the centaurs, don't be half man, half animal. Don't be brutes. So Apollos is keeping you from raping everybody, okay? So stay away from that. That's basically what this work is about. Lastly, how many more minutes we have? 5 minutes. The dying neobid is an important landmark in feminism. So here you go, ladies. It's your first time that you get to be uncovered. Yay!
We've been uncovered.
Yeah, you've been uncovered, but in the sense that from the feminine perspective in Greece, it's the first time that the Greek female is seen. And unfortunately, though, so here's the drawback. It's done for humiliation purposes.
Oh, that's not
Aww.
So there's the downside. It's not about her beauty, it's about the fact that she's humiliated. The dying neobid, the woman from that we call the neobid, is a woman who had lots of children. And these children were so wonderful and healthy and strong that she was declaring that she was better than Hera.
Is that supposed to be BCE?
This is a comment.
Yeah, it should say BCE. Sorry, that's a really bad mistake.
Yeah.
BCE. Wow, this is all full of stuff. I gotta go through and just read it. She said, I have the greater children even than Hera. I'm even a better mother than Hera. And Hera's like, what? This human is freaking, no, I can't let her do this. Apollo, Artemis, go! And like her children go running out like, yes! And talk about Apollo not like doing anything half brutish. They both run out like full on two gods and like shoot her down like with arrows and stuff. So they just like kill her like right there. You're like, how dare you despite, reject the mother of all gods, right? So here Neobid is dying because she has an arrow in her back. So this isn't sensual, it's humiliation. She's like, ah, like that, and her like dress is falling off to show you like, ooh, humiliation. She can't even cover herself while she dies. It's kind of a sad work, but shows quite a bit of expression, more expression than what we've seen in the past. Our character is dying. Her head is uplifted in sort of this, again, sort of a stoic acceptance, but also of a sense of pain or agony. And you have the character bent and moving in that beautiful freestand, once again freestanding, but also creating that perfect balance of the shapes, asymmetrical, and then also a great sense of anatomy, beautiful sensual anatomy of the female body as opposed to the male body. So different set of contours, obviously, and as a result, we get a beautiful work that is happening also to be representative of violence and humiliation.
They killed her children?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe so.
She had like 12 kids, right?
12 kids or whatever. Had more kids than Hera or
She
whatever.
had
One of them's got good.
boys, and then like Artemis killed
So
boys,
many.
Apollo
You
killed
are
girls.
so
Oh, okay, so you know the whole story.
Innocent children to God.
Oh yeah, no, but what do you mean by have not been bending around?
Oh, you mean like had not been in the earlier pedimental sculptures, so sculptures that had pediment, like were on pediment, were not built in the round. They were engaged in the wall, like higher leaf sculptures. Good question. Notice the similarities and differences between our archaic sculpture and now our classical sculpture, between our both dying figures here and pediments. This is a pediment sculpture. This is also a pediment sculpture. Oh, okay, twice. We don't have time for this. We're going to talk about drapery. We'll do that. We'll do so. Should we do a thematic? I can do you, huh? Temple. Do you want to do a temple one? Don't want to do a different one?
No,
I don't know. I'll think about it.
I heard there should be no
I have two of
quiz.
them that I want to do.
There shouldn't be a quiz.
Shouldn't be a quiz? Of course
Yeah.
it's quiz. Always quiz.
No, there
Good
shouldn't.
job.
No,
Know your art snapshots. You should be able to do that before we even start. You should be reading that chapter every night.
We did
Couple
it.
pages every night. Read. Lose your
It's in the book.
snapshots.
It has a
You need to read those chapters, even if you don't know it. At least read the captions of each of the works in the thing.
It actually has everything.
It's very important.
I was busy
Art, ancient Greece. Oh yeah, I said I was
It was like 10 o'clock.
we'll get it done when we have time. All right. Lights on. Goodbye, children. Enjoy your mathematical portions. Enjoy nature. Please, if someone can go around and just grab the rulers that you left on the desk. Put your desks together, please. 7.
Well, Lorraine is extremely up.
Huh?
Her math.
Yeah.